The polished wooden door of the courtroom felt heavier than I expected. Taking a steadying breath, I pushed it open and stepped into the tense, hushed atmosphere. All eyes flickered towards me for a moment before returning to the front. I was just an old woman, after all, an insignificant spectator in the drama of my own life. I found a seat in the back row, my movements slow and deliberate. My daughter, Evelyn, was sitting at the plaintiff's table beside her husband, Mark. She glanced over her shoulder, and her eyes, once so full of light, narrowed with irritation. She leaned into Mark, her whisper a sharp, condescending dart meant for my ears. She actually came. I can't believe her nerve. What does she think this will accomplish? Mark didn't even look at me. He just patted her hand, a smirk playing on his lips. My heart, which had become a fragile, brittle thing, cracked a little more. This was the child I had raised, the center of my universe for 50 years. But then something shifted. The judge, an imposing figure in black robes, looked up from his papers to see what the minor commotion was about. His gaze swept over the room and landed on me, and he froze. Completely. The pen he was holding clattered onto the bench. His face, a mask of professional detachment, melted into sheer, unvarnished disbelief. "Is that Eleanor?" he murmured, his voice low but carrying in the silent room. The entire courtroom seemed to hold its breath. The young lawyer who had been speaking trailed off, confused. Evelyn and Mark swiveled in their seats, their expressions shifting from smug superiority to bewildered alarm. They stared at the judge, then at me, then back at the judge. None of them had any idea who I really was until that moment. That trial changed everything. My name is Eleanor Vance. I am 72 years old, and until a few months ago, I was the definition of a predictable life. My world was small, curated by decades of routine. Every morning, I would wake at 6:30 a.m., shuffle into my small kitchen, and brew a single cup of tea in the world's best grandma mug my Evelyn had given me when she was 7. I'd take it to the window overlooking my postage stamp garden, where I'd carefully tend to the rose bushes my late husband, Arthur, had planted for our 25th anniversary. For 48 years, I was a mother who poured every ounce of herself into her only child. After Arthur passed, leaving a quiet ache in our home, I thought Evelyn and I would cling to each other. How foolish that hope seems now. Instead of drawing closer, a chill settled between us. Her weekly visits became monthly obligations, her phone calls brief and hurried. I was no longer her mother. I was a duty, a chore to be managed. The great unraveling began on a Tuesday. I had spent the entire day preparing. I'd made Evelyn's favorite meal, beef bourguignon, the recipe her father had loved, one that required hours of slow, loving simmering. I'd laid out the good linen tablecloth, the one with the delicate lace edges I'd saved for a lifetime for special occasions. I'd even bought a small, cheerful bouquet of sunflowers to brighten the table. When they arrived, Mark entered first, as always, his presence immediately sucking the warmth from the room. He beelined for Arthur's worn leather armchair, the one I still couldn't bring myself to sit in, and sank into it, pulling out his phone without a word of greeting. Evelyn followed, her posture stiff in a sharp, expensive-looking pantsuit. "Mother," she said, her voice clipped and formal. She perched on the very edge of the sofa, as if afraid to get too comfortable. "We need to talk." A cold dread began to pool in my stomach. "Of course, dear. I've made your favorite." She waved a dismissive hand. "This isn't a social call." Mark grunted from the armchair, not looking up from his screen. "Just get on with it, Ev." Evelyn took a sharp breath. "Mark and I have been thinking. This house is too much for you. The stairs, the garden, the upkeep. It's a hazard. We've found a wonderful place. The Gables. It's an assisted living facility. They have activities, people your own age. You'll be much happier there." The floor seemed to drop away beneath me. This house, the one where Arthur and I had painted every room, where we'd hosted every birthday, where he had taken his last breath holding my hand in our bed. Every scuff on the floorboards, every chip in the paint, was a chapter of our story. But this is my home, Evelyn. Our home. All our memories are here. Memories aren't in the walls, Mother, she said, her tone as cold as ice. They're in here. She tapped her chest, a gesture that felt hollow and rehearsed. This is for the best. You'll be safe. Mark finally looked up, a thin, satisfied smile on his face. It's really a very nice place, Eleanor. We've handled all the paperwork. You won't have to worry about a thing. Tears threatened, hot and sharp, but I forced them down. I would not give them the satisfaction. I need time to consider this, I whispered, the words scraping my throat. There's nothing to consider, Evelyn said, standing up abruptly. It's decided. The assessor is coming on Thursday. And with that they left. They left the bourguignon to congeal in its pot, the sunflowers to droop in their vase, and my heart, shattered into 1,000 unrecognizable pieces, lying on the lace tablecloth where we had once been a family. The next few days were a blur of quiet despair. I moved through my home like a ghost, touching the familiar surfaces, the mantelpiece where Arthur's pipe still sat, the doorframe notched with marks charting Evelyn's growth. The humiliation was a constant, physical ache. On Thursday, Mark arrived unannounced with a man in a cheap suit carrying a clipboard. This is Gary. He's here to assess the property, Mark announced, as if this were a normal, acceptable occurrence. Gary walked through my home with a critical eye. His lips pursed. Foundation seems solid, but these walls are practically plaster and lath. And this electrical wiring. It's a fire hazard. The whole place would need to be gutted, really. Location is the main selling point. I stood in the hallway, my hand resting on the wallpaper in the hallway. A faded floral pattern Evelyn had picked out when she was 10. Daisies, Mama. They're so happy, she'd said. Now it was just outdated. Evelyn came by later that day, armed with glossy brochures for the gables. Look, Mother, she said, her voice dripping with a false saccharine cheer. They have a ceramics studio. And bingo on Wednesdays. You'll have so much more fun than sitting here alone. Alone. I wanted to scream. I'm not alone here. I have your father in every room. I have you in every memory. But I said nothing. The final brutal blow came a week later. They arrived with a third man, a lawyer named Mr. Sterling, who carried a sleek leather briefcase. He laid a stack of documents on my coffee table. Mrs. Vance, he said, his voice smooth as oil. We have the transfer of property documents prepared. We just need your signature. Transfer? I asked, my mind fuzzy with confusion. I thought you were selling it. Evelyn couldn't meet my eyes. We've decided to keep it in the family. It's a better investment. The truth dawned with horrifying clarity. They didn't just want me out. They wanted to take my house, my only asset, for themselves. I'm not signing anything, I said, my voice trembling but firm. Mark took a step forward, his mask of civility slipping. Eleanor, be reasonable. You're not in a state to make these decisions. This house is a burden you can't handle. My husband laid these floors with his own hands, I whispered, pointing to the hardwood. It is not a burden. It is my home. Mother, please, Evelyn implored, a flicker of her old self in her eyes, quickly extinguished by a sharp look from Mark. Last month you left the stove on. It's not safe. It was a lie. A blatant, cruel lie. Mr. Sterling cleared his throat. Mrs. Vance, if you are unwilling to sign voluntarily, we may have to explore other legal avenues. A competency hearing, for instance. The threat hung in the air, cold and final. My own daughter was willing to have me declared mentally unfit to get what she wanted. I was completely, utterly alone. I need a week, I murmured, defeated. You have until Monday, Mark said coldly. Then we do this the hard way. After they left, I collapsed into Arthur's chair and wept until I had no tears left. The silence of the house, once a comfort, now felt accusatory. That night, for the first time, I truly considered giving up. The fight seemed too big, the enemy too powerful. But deep within the wreckage of my heart, a small stubborn ember refused to be extinguished. It was the memory of Arthur's steady gaze, the pride in Evelyn's eyes when she was a little girl telling me I was her hero. I would not go quietly. The following morning, Evelyn returned alone. A foolish, desperate hope bloomed in my chest. "She's come to apologize." "Mother, I'm here to help you pack," she said, her voice devoid of warmth. She held up a stack of flattened cardboard boxes. "We'll start with the non-essentials." She moved through my home with a terrifying efficiency, pulling books from shelves, wrapping china and newspaper. She was erasing me piece by piece. When she reached for the framed photograph of Arthur and me on our wedding day, I reached out to stop her. "Please, Evelyn. Not that." "It's just a thing, Mother," she said, and placed it in a box labeled Donate. The ultimate violation came when she opened my jewelry box. Inside was my wedding band, the string of pearls Arthur gave me when Evelyn was born, and my own mother's delicate sapphire pendant. "These should go into a safe deposit box," Evelyn stated, dropping them into her purse. "At the Gables, they could easily be stolen." "Those are mine," I cried, lunging forward. Evelyn took a step back, her face a mask of cold pity. "You see? This is exactly what we're talking about. This agitation isn't healthy." I was trapped. Any resistance was proof of my incompetence. Any emotion was evidence of my instability. When she left that evening, taking a piece of my soul with her in her purse, I was left in a house that was beginning to look like a stranger's. The next day, in a final desperate act of remembrance, I went to Arthur's old oak desk. I hadn't had the heart to properly clear it out. I opened the drawers one by one, smelling the faint, familiar scent of his sandalwood polish and old paper. There were bills, old birthday cards, manuals for appliances we no longer owned. In the bottom drawer, tucked behind a false back I'd forgotten existed, was a slim locked metal box. My heart hammered against my ribs. I searched for the key, my fingers fumbling through his old keyring, until I found a small tarnished silver one tucked inside his favorite copy of Moby Dick. With trembling hands, I fit the key into the lock, turned with a soft click. Inside was not the collection of sentimental trinkets I expected, but a neat folder of documents. On top was a last will and testament, dated just 3 months before his death. A will I had never seen. Our lawyer had handled a simple will years before. This was different. I began to read, and with each sentence, the world I thought I knew tilted off its axis. Arthur had not been the simple, salaried man I believed. For 30 years he had been a silent, shrewd investor. The documents detailed a portfolio of stocks in blue-chip companies, ownership of several commercial properties downtown, and a substantial stake in a successful tech startup. The numbers in the attached bank statements made me dizzy. But the most shocking part was the will itself. I was the sole beneficiary. Evelyn was to receive a modest trust, but only upon my death, and only if she had demonstrated consistent care, respect, and devotion to me in my later years. Arthur had foreseen this. He had seen the avarice in Mark's eyes and had built a fortress around me. There was more. One of the properties listed was the very building where Evelyn and Mark lived in their luxurious penthouse. They had been paying rent to a management company that, in turn, deposited the funds into an account in my name, an account I never knew existed. Arthur also owned a significant share of the venture capital firm where Mark was a junior partner. Beneath the financial documents was a letter, in Arthur's familiar, looping handwriting. "My dearest Eleanor, if you are reading this, my time has come, and you have discovered my little secret. Forgive my deception, but I wanted your golden years to be secure, free from worry. You sacrificed so much for our family, for Evelyn. It was my greatest joy to provide this for you. I must confess I never trusted Mark. I saw a hunger in him that had nothing to do with love. I've structured things this way to protect you. If Evelyn is the daughter we raised her to be, she will have a comfortable life. But if not, you hold all the cards. Use this power not for vengeance, my love, but for justice. To remind her of who she is. With all my love for eternity, Arthur, I sat on the floor, the cold hardwood pressing through my thin house dress, and I wept. I wept for the brilliant, protective man I had lost. I wept for the daughter I was losing. And I wept with a fierce, rising sense of power. They thought they were stripping me bare. They had no idea they were trying to steal from an empress. Monday morning arrived, gray and drizzly. I dressed carefully in a simple but elegant navy blue dress, the one I'd worn to Evelyn's college graduation. I applied a faint touch of lipstick and sat in my living room waiting. Right on time, I heard Mark's key in the lock, a key I hadn't known he had. He and Evelyn entered, followed by two burly movers. "All right, Eleanor, time to go," Mark said, his voice booming with false heartiness. I took a slow sip of my tea. "I'm not going anywhere." Evelyn sighed with exasperation. "Mother, we've been over this. The movers are here. This is happening. Are you aware," I began, my voice calm and steady, "that the penthouse you live in, the one you pay $4,500 a month for, is owned by me?" The silence was immediate and absolute. Mark let out a short, sharp laugh. "That's absurd." "Is it?" I asked. I reached for the folder on the side table and slid a single sheet of paper, the property deed, across the coffee table. Evelyn snatched it up, her eyes scanning the page. Her face lost all its color. This can't be right." "It's very right," I said. "Your father was a very clever man. He didn't trust you, Mark. Not with me, and not with his legacy." Mark's composure shattered. "This is a forgery." "You senile old—" "Careful, Mark," I interrupted, my gaze steady. "You're speaking to your landlord. And your husband's major shareholder." The movers shifted uncomfortably. I looked at them. "Gentlemen, there's been a change of plans. Nothing is being moved today. You may leave." Once they were gone, the real confrontation began. The revelations came tumbling out. The bank accounts, the stocks, the full extent of the fortune they had tried to steal a crumb from. Mark ranted and threatened. Evelyn begged and cried, finally turning on Mark. "It was his idea. All of it. He said you were a burden, that you were losing your mind. And you believed him?" I asked, my heart breaking anew. "Your own mother?" In the ensuing chaos, Mark gave Evelyn an ultimatum. "Choose her and you choose poverty. I'm done." To my astonishment and her own, Evelyn straightened her shoulders. "Then get out," she said, her voice trembling but clear. The look of pure, venomous hatred Mark shot us both before slamming the door was something I will never forget. And in the heavy silence that followed, my daughter, pregnant and trembling, turned to me. "Mom," she whispered, the word a plea. Can I stay here tonight?" I looked at this broken, remorseful woman, my little girl, and felt the fortress around my heart develop a crack. "One night," I said, my voice hard. "We'll talk tomorrow." The months that followed were a tense, fragile dance of reconciliation. Sarah, I could no longer think of her as Evelyn, the name Mark had always preferred, stayed in her old room. We spoke little at first, but I watched her. I saw her genuine remorse in the way she quietly helped around the house, in the tears she shed when she thought I wasn't listening. Mark, true to his nature, sued for custody of the unborn child, claiming parental alienation and undue influence, which is how we ended up in that courtroom. After the judge's stunning recognition of me, the trial was a foregone conclusion. My lawyer presented the mountain of evidence, the threats, the lies, the attempted theft. Mark's case crumbled to dust. Judge Ricardo Alvarez, my once shy intern, looked at Mark with disdain. "Mr. Davies, the only manipulation and abuse evident in this case has been perpetrated by you." He ruled overwhelmingly in our favor, granting a restraining order and full custody to Sarah. As we walked out of the courthouse, victorious and exhausted, Sarah slipped her hand into mine. "How, Mom? How did he know you?" "Life has a strange way of coming full circle, my dear," I said, squeezing her hand. Kindness is an investment that never loses its value. 5 years later, the sound of laughter is the music of my home. My granddaughter Lily races through the garden, her red hair a flash of fire among Arthur's roses. Sarah, now a confident woman who runs her own small business, brings out a tray of lemonade. We sit on the terrace, watching Lily build a fairy house out of twigs and moss. The Eleanor Vance Foundation for Women's Dignity, funded by Arthur's secret fortune, now operates 3 safe houses for older women facing circumstances like mine. It is my greatest pride. A letter arrived today from one of the women we helped. You gave me the courage to take back my life, she wrote. You showed me it's never too late. Sarah smiles at me from across the table, her eyes full of a love I thought was lost forever. What are you thinking about, Mom? I'm thinking about your father, I say, and about second chances. Lily runs up, clutching a slightly crumpled dandelion. For you, Grandma. I take it, my heart swelling with a joy so profound it aches. Thank you, my darling. Later, as I tuck Lily into bed, she asks, Grandma, tell me the story of the brave queen and the secret treasure. I smile and begin the tale. When I finish, she asks, and did they live happily ever after? I look at her mother, at the peaceful, loving home we have rebuilt from the ashes of betrayal. Yes, my love, I whisper, kissing her forehead. They certainly did. In the end, I didn't need to be loud to be heard. I just needed to remember the strength that had been inside me all along, waiting for its moment to bloom. Arthur hadn't just left me a fortune. He had left me the key to my own liberation. And that was the greatest treasure of all. The peace we had cultivated felt as deep-rooted as the ancient oak in the garden. But peace, I had learned, is a fragile ecosystem. It was a crisp autumn afternoon, the kind Arthur had loved best. The air was sharp with the scent of decaying leaves and wood smoke, and Lily was scuffing through piles of gold and crimson, her laughter echoing like bells. Sarah was inside on a video call with the board of the foundation. We were planning our largest project yet. A legal aid wing to provide pro bono counsel for elderly women facing predatory family members. The irony was not lost on me. The doorbell chimed, a cheerful sound that felt out of place. I assumed it was a delivery, but when I opened the door, the figure standing there stole the breath from my lungs. It was Mark. 5 years had not been kind to him. The expensive, sharp-edged confidence was gone, replaced by a shabby, worn-down quality. His suit was wrinkled, his hair thinner. His eyes held a desperate, hungry glint I recognized all too well. Eleanor, he said, and his voice was different too, less a command, more a plea. I did not open the screen door. You are in violation of a restraining order, Mark. You have 10 seconds to leave my property before I call the police. Please, he begged, his hands pressed together as if in prayer. Just 5 minutes. I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm here to see my daughter. You have no daughter here, I said, my voice like steel. The courts were very clear. It's Lily's birthday next week, he said, and a tear, real or expertly faked, traced a path down his cheek. I've missed everything. Her first steps, her first words. I'm her father. You can't keep me from her forever. The manipulation was so transparent it was almost pathetic. He wasn't here out of love. He was here because he had hit rock bottom. A quick investigation by my lawyer Victoria had revealed he'd been fired from his firm. His new marriage had collapsed, and he was drowning in debt. Lily was his last potential lifeline. Your parental rights were terminated for a reason, I replied, unmoved. You saw her as a pawn, not a person. That hasn't changed. Leave now. His desperation curdled into anger. The mask slipped, revealing the man I remembered. You vindictive old witch. You turned my own wife against me and stole my child. This isn't over. Just then, Sarah appeared behind me, her phone still in her hand. Mark. Her voice was cold, laced with a disgust that had taken years to forge. What are you doing here? His expression shifted again, becoming wheedling. Sarah, baby. Look at you. You look amazing. I've missed you so much. I've made mistakes, huge mistakes. But I've changed. I'm in therapy. I just want a chance to be a family. We were never a family, Mark, Sarah said, her voice steady, though I could see the tremor in her hand. A family doesn't do what you did. A family doesn't try to destroy its own. Now, get off my mother's porch before we have you arrested. The word arrested seemed to finally penetrate. He took a step back, his eyes darting between us with pure, undiluted hatred. You'll regret this, he spat. Both of you. He slunk back to a beat-up sedan parked down the street and sped off, leaving a cloud of exhaust and unease in his wake. Sarah closed the door and leaned against it, her composure crumbling. How did he find us? How did he know where we live? We never moved, Sarah, I said gently, putting an arm around her. He always knew. He was just too proud or too successful to need us before. Now he's desperate. That night, the old fears crept out of the shadows. I checked the locks on the doors and windows twice. The serene confidence I had carried for years felt thin, brittle. Mark was a cornered animal, and cornered animals are unpredictable. The true test came a week later, on Lily's 5th birthday. We had a small party in the garden with a few of her friends from kindergarten. The air was filled with the sounds of childish shrieks and laughter. Lily, wearing a paper crown and a chocolate-smeared grin, was the picture of joy. As I was handing out slices of cake, I saw him. Across the street, partially obscured by the trunk of the old oak, stood Mark. He wasn't approaching, he was just watching. A silent, spectral reminder of the past we had escaped. My blood ran cold. I didn't point him out to Sarah, who was laughing as she organized a game of musical chairs. Instead, I walked calmly to the house, picked up the phone and dialed Victoria. It's Eleanor, I said, my eyes fixed on his shadowy figure. He's back. And he's watching Lily. Victoria acted with swift, brutal efficiency. The police paid Mark a visit at his rented room that very evening. A formal warning was issued, and the terms of the restraining order were reinforced. He was now prohibited from coming within 500 yards of our home, Lily's school, or Sarah's place of business. But a piece of paper felt like a flimsy shield against the unease he had sown. The incident forced a conversation Sarah and I had been avoiding. We had built a beautiful life inside these walls, but the foundation needed reinforcing. We can't live in fear, Mom, Sarah said, her face etched with worry as we drank tea after putting a blissfully unaware Lily to bed. But we can't be naive either. We won't be, I assured her. Arthur taught me that true power is about foresight. We decided to transform our sanctuary into a gentle fortress. It was not about building walls to keep the world out, but about creating an environment of unassailable security, so we could live within it without fear. We installed a state-of-the-art security system with cameras at every entrance and motion sensors in the garden. The lights were automated to come on at dusk. The locks were replaced with digital, fingerprint-enabled deadbolts. To Lily it was a fun game, pressing her magic finger to open the door. To us it was peace of mind. But the most significant change was not technological. I sat down with Lily one afternoon, in the simple, clear language a child could understand. Remember the story of the brave queen, my love? I began. Lily nodded, her eyes wide. She had a magic shield. That's right, I said. And do you know what the magic shield was made of? Love, Lily declared proudly. It was. But it was also made of rules. The rule was that she never, ever went anywhere with a stranger without checking with the knights of the castle first. Your mommy and I are your knights. We role-played scenarios. What to do if someone she didn't know well approached her. The safe words she should demand if anyone ever claimed we'd sent them. We taught her that it was never ever wrong to yell, to run, to make a scene if she felt scared. Watching my 5-year-old granddaughter practice shouting, "You are not my knight," was a heartbreaking necessity, but it filled me with a fierce pride. We were not making her fearful, we were making her powerful. Weeks turned into months with no sign of Mark. The security system became part of the background hum of our lives. The vigilance relaxed into awareness. One evening, Victoria called. "I have news, Eleanor. Mark has left the state. He moved to the West Coast after finding a job. It seems our final legal warning was the push he needed to cut his losses." The relief was palpable, a physical weight lifting from my shoulders. That night, I slept more deeply than I had in months. The following weekend, we held the annual garden party for the foundation. The lawn was filled with women of all ages, residents, volunteers, donors. Their stories were maps of resilience, their laughter a testament to second chances. Lily, in a tiny apron, was helping serve lemonade, her confidence radiant. Sarah stood to give a speech. She spoke of courage, of rebuilding, of the profound strength found in community. Then she looked directly at me. Mark had tried to take everything from me, but in his wake he had left only the things that truly mattered. A daughter rediscovered, a granddaughter raised in safety and joy, and a purpose that gave my pain meaning. The past could knock on our door, but it could no longer enter. We had built something too strong, too beautiful from its ashes. And in the warm, dappled light of the afternoon, surrounded by the living proof of our resilience, I knew with absolute certainty that our happily ever after was not just a story for Lily. It was our truth, hard won and eternally protected.